it's the goal of a marketer to get people to buy a product, and oftentimes, though not always, they will use whatever statistics support their claims to get ahead.
I think the biggest thing when it comes to like statistics in advertisements and newspapers is not knowing like the background behind it, like what was the size of the sample, or what process was used, something like that. Like there's always more than just the nice pretty display, and I think that's what gets missed.
There are a lot of statistics, a lot of numerical measures that are shown that aren't supported by some kind of science behind that, and I don't think many people, consumers seeing those numbers, really understand where they're coming from, or if they're actually coming from anywhere.
I think numbers are something that we all have common, that we understand numbers. It's easy to see, 75% effectiveness or 100% of the people who tried it, right? It's about manipulating information, but those numbers seem to have more weight than words do sometimes.
Actually, the advertisers know exactly what they're doing. What the problem is you don't usually get the full story. One of the examples is they were told that 80% of dentists recommend a particular toothpaste. Well, they don't say that that's the only one that they recommend. Perhaps 80% of dentists recommend, Crest, and 85% recommend, Colgate and whatever. So there's no comparison there. We don't know we don't know what the choices were. We don't know how the questions were asked. So in advertising, we typically hear what the advertisers want the consumer to hear in order to buy their product.
I think the knowledge of the consumer is considered to be fairly low from a statistical and just educational level in most cases. And if that is the premise or the foundation that advertisers are working from, then in a way they are mining an entire group of individuals whose knowledge doesn't even have the power to overcome the statistics, the numbers.
Research-wise, the GAISE report, the GAISE report, kind of has brought about changes in statistics education in the K-12 education. And it was also included in the Common Core standards that 45 states initially accepted, but have now started to back away from. But even in that particular document for the Common Core, despite GAISE's recommendation that K-5 start to have statistics education implemented in it, there's very little in the Common Core that actually is specific towards the K-5 education. It would be nice to see some more statistics brought into the younger grades so that they can have a chance to explore the world around them in terms of quantitative reasoning.
More people need statistics than pre-calculus and calculus. When you look at the big population, not everybody's going to go into a field with calculus, but everybody will encounter statistics. So it would be nice if the high school curriculum had a balance more between statistics and calculus.
Children nowadays are using tablets and iPhones, and I think from that age, if they can really be cognizant of not believing everything they see, or being able to evaluate it on their own, it would really be a useful skill for them.
I mentioned the emphasis on teaching it in school. Like, it should be taught from a perspective of how can you use statistics.
I think more and more as statistics is being used and data is being collected, I think there needs to be more educational outreach to communities, and I think that even in middle schools, high schools, I think more statistical literacy would be a great way to start. That younger people can start thinking about really critically evaluating the information they're presented with.
The idea is that people frequently don't think of it as math, because a lot of the statistics that you do is interpretation, and that's really where those thinking components is what kids need to have in their education is how do I interpret this data, because they're thrown data constantly in the real world around them. How can they take that data and interpret what's being thrown at them on a 24-hour basis with the media systems that we have?
But my goal for my students is to get out of my course a little bit more savvy when it comes to statistics in the news and in the media and in advertising. If there could be more focus on that in the younger grades and less focus on rote memorization or process or formulas, then I think you will raise a kind of smarter generation, more savvy generation when it comes to being intelligent consumers.